Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-It Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon and Eric Lopez.
Welcome to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Andrew Klukov with you, Eric Lopez, and the student of the game, Kyle Nash, with you as we're just, well, you've caught us at a really awkward moment where we're finishing up talking about what we're going to talk about in segments 1 and 2, which is American Athletic Conference Football Media Day, which took place earlier today. We're recording this on Thursday night, July 28th. Thank you for joining us. You can follow us at UCF Banneret_SBN collectively. Gentlemen, happy Media Day. The season is underway, isn't it?
Oh, hey, it's official now, right?
Hey, not only it's a happy Media Day, it's happy 4-star commitment day, baby. Let's roll. The Gus Bus is on fire.
Show me the paper.
Give me the statue.
You guys know how I am.
Stop.
Where's the...
We beat Ohio State for a commitment. That's a celebration.
Verbal commitments are worth the paper they're printed on.
In Gus, we trust.
Listen, I appreciate Jeff's how you say realism here, but I'm with Elo from a PR standpoint.
Oh yeah,
Power Fives on this. That's fun. I don't care who you are.
Oh yeah, I know, I get it, but I also. Well,
let's let the audience know who we're talking about.
I also lived it. We'll talk about this in
the biggest commitment maybe in the history of the university.
Defensive lineman John Walker chose UCF over. He's a 4-star. Reportedly chose. He's from Osceola, so he's a cowboy with a K. Class of 23, 6'3", 310. He's a big fella. Chose UCF over, reportedly, Ohio State, Michigan, Miami, and
Take
Florida.
That, Buckeyes!
Order. We'll touch upon that at the end of the show.
Go cry me a river. This is payback for taking Whitney Jones.
Let's talk about guys who are playing right now at UCF as the Media Day is underway. All right. So, American Athletic Conference Media Day was earlier today. Rest in peace, the lobster bake. Haven't had that since prior to COVID. They didn't return. Everything was on Zoom today, which I think they did that just for the sake of efficiency. But first, Kyle and Andrew, you guys were both there. We saw Mike Oresco talk for, 38 minutes at the top.
Short for him.
Yeah, and then we had, and then of course we had Gus Malzahn and a few players. Drew, your quick recap of how it all went down.
Well, just today in general.
Yeah.
Well, let me go off by saying that the fact that it was virtual when all the other conferences have gone back to in person, actually, in my opinion, cheapened the whole thing. We actually ran into a problem.
True, guns blazing right out of the gate.
Yeah, because people really were. Come on now. I mean, really, we're really missing out on going to Detroit for the MAC. Like, who's going to the MAC for Detroit? Nobody.
Hey, listen, our guy Eric Henry was in Dallas for the Conference USA Media Days. So.
Man, he needs to start covering a real league. I hope he does. Let's join
I'm going with
man.
Holy
Eric, my boy, join the American coverage next year. All right?
Kyle, we need to take cover. Holy shoot!
I was about to say, listen. If you wanted to know the look and feel of Oresco's delivery this morning, it's not far off than what these gentlemen were doing, because Oresco went to work on the college football establishment, on student athlete compensation, and also, of course, the CFP set up and the fact they didn't expand. Listen, I know Oresco tends to run long, but he had a lot of substance today, a lot of subtext. If you're worried about the American, what they're trying to do to fight to survive, listen to that. Listen to that speech this morning, ladies and gentlemen. That was definitely one that was passion-filled.
Here's how they're fighting to survive. It's called cutting costs and pinching pennies. And that's what this was about. They would have had to pay more if they were hosting a live event. By doing it virtually.
And I would argue that's a smart decision.
However, there's a trade-off
decision.
there. There's a trade-off there. Case in point, Cincinnati's players got cut off early because their connection broke.
Well, that's their problem.
They actually had to end the segment early. So there's a trade-off. I like the hybrid.
That's not the Americans' fault. I agree with Eric. That's not the Americans.
Yeah, that's not a league's fault. That's a school issue.
But if it was in person like all the other 9 conferences were, that would never have happened because those players would have been there.
You just wanted free food. That's what you wanted.
Hey, 11th commandment, thou shalt not turn down free food.
You made the trip, Drew. Stop talking. No,
this is what I deal with. Anyway, go ahead.
I would have sent Kyle.
For somebody who might have made the trip, yeah, I'm with you, Drew. Personally, I would have preferred an in-person experience myself, but at the end of the day, I believe part of it too, Drew, was when they're setting all this stuff up, a lot of things were in flux, keep in mind, right? And I think they're kind of setting that table. This is definitely going to be the last one virtually if they have half a brain. And I think it puts in things nicely for the transition to get a big grand opening out of it when they come up next year with all their new schools and stuff. Now, we obviously won't be a part of that here at the BNGB, but I think that's what the American had in mind too as well, big picture.
So what you're saying, Kyle, is he wasn't speaking to UCF Cincinnati and Houston. He was speaking to FAU and Charlotte and all of them, right?
He was speaking to his future tenants and the world at large. And I believe him when he says that he has no ill will towards what UCF, Houston, and Cincinnati are doing. I believe
that was a bit of a dig, though.
He's not going to celebrate them leaving either.
Yeah.
I mean,
you got to take it with a grain of salt. I mean, he was talking about, he was defending the teams that were still there.
Yeah.
And talking about their relevancy. Absolutely. And he used Tulsa over UCF as an example. And we all know Tulsa has a voodoo magical spell against UCF. I mean, that's just,
I think he dropped the Tulsa thing just to really troll you.
The sun rises in the east
because he knows how much
blue.
He can't stand
Tulsa beats
losing
UCF.
to Tulsa.
Hold on, though. Let the man reach into the pit a few more times of the PR of the UCF Twitter mafia that he's losing. I think it's an expert business move. I really don't think he takes it all that personal.
He doesn't take any of this personally. He doesn't care. It's like if the fans
he's not Bob Bowlesby who's going to ramble and call Dennis Dobbs in the middle of the night crying and whining. They took my teams.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, if you really want to ruffle some feathers, that's how you do it. Not tick off UCF fans. I mean, because this point next year they're gone anyway. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's get in. I mean, let's move on from Mike. I mean,
all right. So
right. Did we mimic him pretty well of being angry about something and just droning on about it?
Well, you took a 5-minute segment and turned it into 10, so there's that. Let's talk
about.
Is he talking about playoff expansion? Anyway,
playoffs.
Three figures from UCF were at the podium today. Of course, head coach Gus Malzahn and two players on offense, much to Andrew's chagrin. Isaiah Bowser and Ryan O'Keefe. Drew, you're on record.
Well, it wasn't my
defensive guy. Nothing against Isaiah and Ryan, but
Jeremiah Jean-Baptiste was supposed to be the second guy, and we got a last-second notification it was going to be Ryan. And I was hoping to have offense, defense. Nothing against Ryan, but I wanted someone from each side, to get that balance. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But it wasn't
guys some
my
due,
chagrin.
Let's give I'm saying to your chagrin that they didn't have a defensive guy there is what I'm saying. But let's give both of those guys some credit because, of course, it is a watch list season as well. And both Isaiah and Ryan made some key watch lists this week. Ryan O'Keefe was named to the preseason watch list for the Paul Horning Award, which goes annually to the player deemed the most versatile in the country. And Isaiah Bowser also is named for his leadership both on and off the field as a preseason watch lister for the Danny Werfel Trophy, which goes to the college football player who best combines exemplary community service with athletic and academic achievement. Well, I would not mind being nominated for that award one bit. But
Standard, why don't we have Matt Lee? He's eligible for the Remington, and I want to talk to some beef.
You got one guy you got one on the Outland list.
Yep. And then Andrew Osteen was also watch listed for the Ray Guy Award too. But I wanted to talk about the because Drew, you got to talk to Gus for a little bit. Media day press conferences are media day press conferences. You're not going to glean too much out of them. But what were we able to get out of Gus today? Well,
he's very excited with the direction things are going.
I would hope so.
That's an understatement. He's happy to have last year in the rearview mirror. It was not an easy year. Nothing was safe, not even him.
Right.
And he's definitely very, very high on the guys that are here for 2022. They've hit the portal very hard. And the big question most fans have is which QB is going to be the guy or in the lead. And he did not tip his hat at all on that one.
Right.
He basically said it's 50-50 and it's anyone's game.
So, press conference fodder, which you would expect at least at this point. Don't give anybody a giant piece of meat to attack here, right, Kyle?
Well, no, certainly not. But here's what I think Drew is selling short too. Like he mentions, the whole concept of mentioning the long IR that included the coach himself. And Drew, you'll see, very eloquently brought that into the fold. But I think Gus did make a great point of how much this team has learned from that and kind of learned to appreciate the time they have on the field. Like, for context, we heard Josh Heupel talk about during the pandemic, this really hit home how important each opportunity to play is. I feel like Gus had that same vibe and then some about being able to appreciate, health and staying healthy. And one thing I think he did assure is that those running backs are still healthy and everything's going well on that front right now currently for the team.
All right, let's go ahead and drop that bite. Gus talking or answering Andrew's question.
Let's see. Last year you dealt with injury adversities like crazy, including to yourself. How has all of that changed your coaching mentality going into this season?
Yeah, that's a great question. Last year, it wasn't just the injuries. It was who the injuries were to. And it was some of our best players. The first 3 games of the year, we were clicking. And we if we'd have stayed healthy, we'd have been machine-like as the season went on. But, we lost our top guys. We really had to reach deep down in. I'm so proud of our team that, a lot of teams would have folded, would have splintered. Our guys didn't. They hung in there. We had really strong leadership that got us through those tough times. And so I think this year that's a huge benefit. And that's what I tell our team. We've got that experience with our leaders that we went through tough times. And, I really believe we're going to stay healthy this year, and that's going to make a huge difference.
All right, so that was Gus Malzahn, head coach of UCF, answering our very own Andrew Glukov there. And, I think that's I think that's when we talk about the storyline coming into the season, that's the part that's extremely underrated right now is the fact that, hopefully this is a team that's healthier than they were last year. And it's funny because I was going back, we're starting the Know Thy Foe previews, looking at the opponents. And I just finished off the Louisville one yesterday. And looking back at that game, it was really, kind of going back and seeing what we were writing about and what we were saying about it at the time. It was astonishing, really, the coaching job that Gus and his assistants did. And the players, too, let's not forget, rallying around and kind of, seeing how far they could get with 2 pair, right? I mean, they because after that game, their hand was quite disheveled, to say the least, right, Andrew?
Lesser men would have mailed it in.
We also had Isaiah Bowser and Ryan O'Keefe in the house. And I think was it Kyle? Did you get in with Ryan, or was it Drew? I forget.
I got in with Ryan O'Keefe. Yeah. And the whole concept is, depth for the running back position at UCF is something that's been there in the 5 years I've been covering them with various outlets. And really for Ryan, I feel like this year the wide receiver core is interesting on another front because of the transfer portal. And really, I just wanted to give him an opportunity to put some shine on that group and its depth, when most of the talk has been on the veteran O-line and the running back core.
All right, let's hear from Ryan O'Keefe.
For all the talk that this offense has with the running back core, give your guys some shine. How deep is this receiver core, and how excited are you? What do they bring to the game that could make this offense super explosive?
Yeah, I feel like we got our receiver room is deep like the running back room. I feel like each of us bring our own component to the game, whether that's speed, whether that's knowing how to get open on your routes, create separation, or whether just go up top. But I feel like we're all hard workers. We band together as a group of brothers. We be doing extra stuff with each other, just doing everything we can. But I can't wait to see what the receivers around me do, because a lot of attention's been on the quarterback situation, the running backs, all that. But my receivers, I can't wait to watch them.
That's Ryan O'Keefe answering our very own Kyle Nash. So everyone tries to, as we kind of sort of wrap this up, coming up in the next segment, we'll talk about the preseason poll, and we'll go into a little bit more depth on that. But as we come out of media day for the conference, what's the Eric, I want to start with you, and then we'll go to Andrew and then Kyle. For you coming out of this, what's the storyline that's kind of like unsaid, but you come out of here thinking, okay, here's the storyline for UCF right now heading into the season?
Well, I think the storyline for UCF, I think there's a lot of unsettling questions, like there is with a lot of teams in this league. I got to, Cincinnati boys, I know, Drew, Kyle, you were there all day, but Cincinnati obviously has a lot of questions that Luke Fickell kind of downplayed, including a quarterback battle and other positions. Houston, who is, has some questions. They have experience with questions. I thought that was the thing that was interesting. This year feels like a league that I think a lot of people are more curious about. I feel like there's a lot of questions still unknown, maybe more than usual. At least that was the sense in watching and following media. Is that the sense you guys got, especially UCF? Granted, everybody right now is playing it close to the vest. Nobody's put the pads on yet until next week. But normally we would have some more confident, like, hey, we know this and this and this. I got a sense of more like, yeah, we'll see. We got to play this out. This has got a lot of stuff to play out.
Well, I'll actually go and be more specific. Gus Malzahn flat out had question marks specifically for the linebacking core.
Yeah.
He called them out as an area that they had hit hard on the transfer portal because the returning depth was was non-existent.
That's the phrase he used too, Drew, was returning depth, right?
I think it's really important to see how, you have to decipher sometimes the coach speak to be able to kind of find these. But Gus was very upfront about the linebacking core, and I think that's very telling when a coach is that blunt about something. Usually they're not that straightforward.
That's a good point by you, Drew, but particular to Gus, like having, sat through press conferences weekly with him throughout last year too. It's interesting that most times when UCF did lose, it happened based on exactly the thing that Gus mentioned was going to be the tough thing to stop. And I think this is the same concept here. If Gus is acknowledging it, you better bet I think it's almost kind of a narrative control kind of thing. He's telling the fans up front, listen, folks, I'm trying to tell you, this group's going to be a thing. Okay. And that kind of, moxie from a coach's veteran as Gus compared to Heupel, compared to Frost, is something that the fans haven't really experienced yet. And to be honest, as somebody who's trying to take quotes and, talk to the guy, it's good to get that, information, lack of a better word, up front, not only because something nice to write about for content, but the fan base may not go quite as nuts about it as, let's say, Randy Shannon and that defense under Heupel, right?
Well, yeah. Not only that, but it's easier to digest. You don't have to try to decipher, what do they mean this? Are they trying to say this? No, this is what it is. And I think that also creates a sense of trust because they're being honest about it. There's no feeling of subterfuge going on, and fans are going to eat that up.
Hey, that's why I call it controlling the narrative, baby.
All right.
Let me ask you both real quick. Both.
Yeah.
Of all the other schools you guys got to cover today, any of them stood out to you, either a coach or a player, either good or bad, that stood out to you, either one of you, non-UCF related?
For me, Eric, the two I'll quickly point out is Dana Holgorsen going out of his way to throw props at Cincy and Luke Fickell. And really, Gus Malzahn did it as well, surely, but he had been doing that all last season and giving props to the team that's going to eventually make it to the CFP, sure, low-hanging fruit in my opinion. But the fact that Holgorsen and Luke Fickell both switched comments of, no, I think you're really number one. No, I think you're really number one. That's fun to see. It's a goodwill thing. But, at the end of the day, I think Dana's playing the politics and Fickell's being realistic about the fact that he lost the starting quarterback. Now, on the less positive side, I'll point out, help me with his last name, Drew, Rhett of SMU. Lashley. I did have it right. I should have been confident. With Rhett Lashley, your quarterback last year had over 4,200 yards and 43 touchdowns. Stop pretending we don't know he's starting. For the love of Pete.
Is he now remember Rhett played for Gus in high school. You think there's some
and he spoke very glowingly about him when he was asked about he flat out said, I don't like coaching against my friends, but I have to get used to it.
Right.
Yeah. Well, he only has to do it as far as we know. He only has
he's got other people too.
So yeah, true. So all right. When we get back, when we return, we dive into the thing that led off Media Day, which was the preseason American Athletic Conference football rankings. You can catch them on blackandgoldbanneret.com right now. Drew and I actually combined on actually filling out a ballot on our behalf.
Man, Drew's a big deal. I mean, Gus is he loves his questions. He's part of his getting. I mean, my goodness, Drew.
Well, I kind of bludgeoned Jeff into the polling part.
As well as you should.
I'm glad you did, and we'll talk about why when we return. It's the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We're back after this.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Kyle Nash, and Andrew Glukov with you here as we continue to break down American Athletic Conference Media Day, the unofficial beginning of the 2022 football season. All right, let's go back to the beginning, boys. The first thing that happened this morning prior to everyone taking to the I was about to say taking to the podium, but no, taking to Zoom, was the preseason media poll, which came out. How many is that? Yeah, 24 media members took part, including us as one of them. Here are the results. These are the results of the preseason media poll. Houston is finished number one. 243 votes, 7 first-place votes. Cincinnati's 2 with 242 total points. I said total points, but total votes, but it's total points. And 10 first-place votes. So Cincinnati had more first-place votes than anybody, but they finished in second because they were 1 point shy on the total. UCF was picked third, also with 7 first-place votes, same as Cincinnati. 225 points. Following that, that's all your first place vote getters right there. After that, 4th SMU, 5th Memphis, ECU is 6th, Tulane, and then from there Tulane, Tulsa, South Florida in 9th, Navy at 10th, last place Temple. All right, so if you check blackandgoldbanneret.com, you'll see that first of all, big thanks to Chuck Sullivan, who reached out and offered me individually a chance to actually vote here on the preseason media ballot. But I sometimes have difficulty controlling my homerism. And so I had to call in for additional support, Leroy Jenkins. In this case, though, I think it was more of a, Andrew, I think it was more of like a Winston Wolfe situation because you needed to fix a problem. And so this is how we did it. For the ballot that I submitted on Black and Gold Banneret's behalf, Andrew and I collaborated. All right, so here's how we did it. We first filled out our own individual ballots, and then he and I kind of collaborated on the chat and figured out a final submission. So I'm going to read out to you what Drew initially had. All right, number 1, Houston. 2, UCF. 3, SMU. 4, Cincinnati. 5, Memphis. 6, ECU. 7, Tulane. 8, Tulsa. 9, South Florida. 10, Navy. 11, Temple. Andrew, you had, was it the bottom 7, bottom 6, the same as the?
I had everything except 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, from fifth down, you had it right, and also you picked the top team. I am an agent of chaos. I like to just kind of throw stuff against the wall, see what happens, and then Andrew's job is to talk me back at it. So I went like this: 1 SMU, 2 Houston, 3 UCF, 4 Tulane, 5 Cincinnati. This is me just spitballing here. 6 South Florida, 7 ECU, 8 Memphis, 9 Navy, 10 Tulsa, 11 Temple. The one thing
I thought you were
had
high
in common with,
or drunk or something, because
I was like, yes. No. Listen, I throw things around, and it's and then I have to think about it more, and then it kind of falls into place. I just wanted my first impression to be that. All right.
I thought you just did a randomizer. Just what's a random number? That's the team that goes up there. Because Tulane at 4.
Relax for a second. Our final submission, after we collaborated on two of this, and Andrew talked me off the ledge, was the following: Houston, UCF, SMU, ECU, top 4. Cincinnati, 5th. Memphis, 6th. Tulane, 7th. South Florida, 8th. Tulsa, 9th. Navy, 10th. Temple, 11th. We ended up, in comparison to the final poll, we had South Florida above Tulsa. They had South Florida and Tulsa, or they had Tulsa above South Florida. We had Houston we had at the top. We have UCF in second. They had Cincinnati in second. We had SMU in third. They had UCF in third. We were high both on ECU.
That's a good way to describe it. High for sure.
Low, yeah. Walked right into that one. And we're low on Cincinnati. And we also picked Memphis one spot lower than the conference did. All right, Drew. And you can check out our roundtable, by the way, on blackandgoldbanneret.com, where we discuss sort of what we're talking about. But I want to throw this open to Kyle and Eric, who, well, obviously you already know how Eric feels about it. But let's throw this open to Kyle. Kyle, if you were doing your own ballot, how would you have put this together?
So first of all, Jeff, let me give you credit for giving SMU the credit they actually deserve, regardless of what Rhett Lashley says about.
I think Rhett Lashley's going to be good, by the way.
Yeah. Oh no, I do too. I just think he thinks the press is a bunch of morons trying to make me believe that Tanner Mordecai's not starting.
You're not letting that one go for a while, are you? Huh?
Yeah.
At the venom.
You're like a pit bull whose jaw is locked on a rope hanging from a tree.
Well, I need to be a pit bull because somebody's already Leroy Jenkins up in this beast. But listen,
just don't break out in the music.
Right? No, trust me, that's not my style, Drew. But thank you for the warning. No, listen. I can make a strong argument, and as much as Lashley kind of dodged the question when I asked him about it during media day, I really think that Tanner Mordecai could be the best quarterback in the conference if things go according to plan. Now, I will grant that his offensive line has a lot of rotation and a lot of newer players in it, but there's a lot of solid returning skill players, and I think the defense is a factor. Drew, go ahead.
Well, I want to point out, because Jeff and I did a lot of back and forth talking about this, and we both, at least I said, Mordecai is the best quarterback in the conference.
Well,
already is. He already is, and I have no reason to think otherwise at that point. However, what hurts SMU is
you're saying that on paper, right? You're saying that on paper. Well,
he's also proved it on the field.
No. But what I'm getting to is we haven't seen the year play out yet, and I think it's the point you're about. You know what? Let me hand you the ball back. Talk about the schedule, and you're seeing why I'm leaving elements of ambiguity in there.
Right, and we actually talk about it in the article itself, where the top four, SMU, UCF, Cincinnati, Houston, there's four particular matchups that Jeff points out. Well, SMU is the only one of those four schools to play all three.
Right.
They have to play at UCF. They do host Cincinnati and Houston, but I mean, still, they have to go through that gauntlet of having to go through all three of them. Whereas,
and by the way, Houston only has to play one of them.
Houston only plays SMU, which is one of the reasons why they got the bump. And I think that's actually why they ultimately got the number one. Now, granted, we've ended up putting Cincinnati fourth. I will take credit as part of as Black and Gold Banneret can take credit. We cost Cincinnati that number one spot, and I have no regrets over it.
Listen.
That's adorable, Drew.
There are 23 other voters who also cost Cincinnati.
Don't take it away from us.
Or excuse me. Wait. Let me rephrase that. There are 14 other voters who cost Cincinnati.
Yeah. Don't take it away from us. They probably all put them at second.
I will say this. And Kyle, I want to make this point real quick about Cincinnati. The reason why, and this is where Eric got mad at us, the reason why we're both low on Cincinnati is you lose Desmond Ridder, you lose a couple of their key offensive weapons. They lost 6 guys on that defense to the NFL.
Yeah.
So, listen. If they outstrip expectations, congratulations. We're going to find out.
You're just serving it up to them. You're serving it up. You're making it easy on them. Congratulations.
Oh, really? Like they care.
Let's go to Buckeye State. Let's go. So this is all about Ohio. This is not Ohio State. They can't reload.
Oh, I disagree. I disagree. I'm going to tell you why.
You can disagree all you want. Stick to softball. That's your
no.
This is football.
Okay, Mr. Offensive lineman people. I'm a little disappointed in you, Drew and Kyle, because you both
line does a certain extent, but you.
Wait, hold on. Let me ask you this question: who is the team that returns their entire offensive line in the league? Want to guess who it is?
Cincinnati does.
That same offensive line that kicks everybody's ass last year in the league, including UCF.
Physical football. Why they kicked everyone's ass is also they had a running back that specialized in kicking people's ass.
Is it him or is it the offensive line? Which is
both.
It? Because last year, all I kept hearing about was, well, this quarterback's a success of the line and the running game. He's no good and everything this. I agree.
But also, everyone.
You didn't hear that from me.
A lot of people like to dog Desmond Ridder. He's a scrappy guy.
I agree.
He's a scrappy guy. And
I too am a card carrying member of the Desmond Ridder fan club.
Say what you want.
Rightfully so.
The name's escaping me. But the transfer from Eastern Michigan, who's currently penciled in as a potential starter.
Competition. Luke Fickell said it was open competition.
It is open competition, but I think he's got the leg up at the
moment. So let me ask you
talent. He's not Desmond Ridder.
Let me ask you something. Does UCF not have the same questions? Who's their quarterback?
UCF has different questions.
They have just as many. We don't know who's linebacking. Who's the linebacking core for UCF?
Their defense to the NFL. I mean,
correct.
That's the difference.
But UCF doesn't have defense, period. We don't know if they have play. Who do they have?
UCF doesn't have
Who's
defense.
the linebacking core right now? Who's in the defensive front? Who's going to replace Khalil? I can play the devil's advocate game. Is my point.
You can play the devil's advocate. However,
that's all I'm saying. We're making
it.
Great,
Remember,
but if UCF can't block, it doesn't matter.
It's a sum of the parts. Also, you have to look at the schedule. Cincinnati plays at SMU. They play at UCF.
Now that's a better argument. It's
all part
but
of the
everybody
whole
loses
package.
players.
UCF, by the way, plays SMU and Cincinnati both at home.
And they also play at Memphis, which is a problem.
Which
is the team that nobody's talking about.
If you look at the article, it's actually the team I point out is kind of the team that I disagree with the ranking the most. I'm a big fan of Seth Hennigan. I think he's a gunslinging quarterback. He's not as good as Tanner Mordecai at this point. He doesn't have the experience, but man, this guy's got all the tools to be really, really good. We didn't get a chance to see him when they came to UCF. If he played, they would have won that game.
I agree.
They were down to their third string quarterback for that game, just through injuries and whatnot. So the fact that UCF won 24-7 is not an indication of how that team really was.
Agreed.
If I'm correct, if I remember, 4 out of Memphis' 6 wins and 4 out of their 6 losses were within 1 score.
Yes.
And Hennigan's was a true freshman, and he still threw for, over 3,000 yards. I mean, he's a gunslinger. That's what he is. And he just needs time to develop. And I think that's going to show up. The other dark horse, and Jeff pointed them out, was East Carolina. And we were very high in East Carolina because, the fact that Holton Ahlers is probably 35 years old now.
And still throws pick 6 every week in big games. Absolutely.
Well, he's basically a collegiate rendition of Brett Favre. He's just going to chuck the ball. No. Brett Favre threw a massive ton of interceptions. Yeah. Massive ton of interceptions.
Brett Favre is the all-time leader in NFL
Yeah, except Brett Favre's a Hall of Famer. Holton Ahlers won't even make his own.
No, wait a second. Holton Ahlers, for his last year, 18 touchdowns, 10 interceptions.
Yeah, against real teams, though, he throws a bunch of pick 6. And we saw that up close against UCF when he gave that game away. So I discount him. In fact, most ECU fans wish he would have moved on. Let me address on SMU, because I don't disagree with you, Kyle, or
you're
Jeff.
Just making that up, but okay.
No, trust me. I listen to that pirate radio online. Trust me, they don't.
SMU was a hard one to grade. They really were.
Here's my problem with the SMU, because I've been on the SMU bandwagon. Here's the problem. If this league played in September and October only, you're correct. They are a contender. The problem is you got to play in November, and this team has been abysmal in November. They don't show up in November. They fade away.
That's actually a good point, Eli.
Why do you think that is?
Because they're soft. And now they're soft.
Did they address that?
That's a good question.
Right.
We won't know that until they get to November. And they made a coaching change. Obviously, Sonny. Now, I'm not a Sonny Dykes guy. He's a good recruiter, terrible X's and O's guy. I'm with you about Rhett Lashley, but we don't know if Rhett Lashley is going to be a good head coach or not. That's a bigger question to me than what Cincinnati lost player-wise, because I know Luke Fickell is going to get the most of what he has. I know Luke Fickell is recruited, just like I know Gus Malzahn has recruited, and at the end of the day, it'll play itself out. I have no idea what's going to play out at SMU yet.
One of the things in the article was a question of who could be a surprisingly bad team that drops. I went with SMU, and the reason why is
it's a good bet.
Don't know. Does he have the right players? Will the system be embraced?
Right.
Do they have enough depth in case something goes wrong because you're instituting a new system?
Correct.
And it's always harder to answer these questions with a new staff.
Yes.
Versus one that's already established. So there are a lot of question marks at SMU. Now, on sheer talent paper, I think they're in the right spot. They're really talented. The only thing that hurts them is the question mark of how Lashley's first year will work with a team that's not necessarily all
And will they show up in November? They haven't the last few years. They just haven't.
Three questions. I want to ask Kyle and Eric these questions. Eric, I'll ask you the same question that I asked Kyle. If you were redoing your own order, how would you do it? Would you go chalk with the conference poll, or what would you switch up?
I definitely would have Houston. I think Houston should be quite frankly, Houston should be a bigger favorite than they are. To me, Houston.
But the conference picked them number 1. Okay, so what would you have that's different?
I would make them unanimous. Number 1.
Well, you can't do that. I'm saying
I'm just saying that's
filled out your
just
own
one
ballot.
Vote, man. You're just one vote.
I would go. I would probably go stick with Cincinnati and UCF, but you could flip those two. I actually think those two are pretty even. It's going to come down to which of those two hit the jackpot on the quarterback position, but I think they're pretty even. I have at fourth I have Memphis actually, and I have SMU 5. But I think those are your 5 teams, and then after that, it's a garbage.
So Drew, let me break back through and actually get a shot to answer the question here, because you guys have had good discussion, but I think the answer's a little different. Okay. I don't have Cincy at 2 because you guys make great points about coaching changes, but the only thing that's a bigger issue is a quarterback change. And for my money, Desmond Ridder was sort of carried to the point made by a running back who's designed to, quote, kick your butt. And Ridder himself not being present, I think, is a leadership issue. Cincinnati still stays in the top 3 for my money, based solely on beef. You made the great point, Eric, that year in and year out, ever since I've been covering this team starting in 2017, guys have told me how tough Cincinnati is. And actually, the other answer I got for that was me in the trenches. But that's a whole other conversation. The punchline being this.
With the scheme and the schemes they run at Navy
and just
is a pain in the ass.
Tenacity of being servicemen in the bleeding military that are disciplined.
Correct. Which, by the way, UCF had problems with last year, as we quite well know.
I want to hit Navy when you're done.
But I got Cincy 3rd. I think SMU is 2nd. I think we're underplaying their defense a smidge, and a coach's job is made easier with a good quarterback in place. If you need an example, look to your very own Mackenzie Milton being in place when Frost departed, right? Now, granted, eventually he doesn't finish the year, and that's a whole other lament we can cover at another time, but that was huge in UCF success that they did have in 2018 as well, continuing the streak as long as they did, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I got UCF 4th, fellas. I'm going to call it what it is. You got quarterback controversy. You got a lack of a defensive front to keep opponents at bay while you're relying on a strong running back core. Now, Drew, I already know where you're going. Don't do it. UCF does have a favorable schedule themselves. I will grant. But I'm letting in some margin of error in that there's going to be a game or two that don't go the way exactly as UCF fans would want.
Well, we just don't know. We just don't know. We don't know who the quarterback is and how they're going to play.
Well, here's what we do know is they're not leaving the state of Florida until October 22nd, which is the first game of the second half of the season.
And they only leave the state 3 times all year.
Consecutively after that's done, though, Jeff.
Sure.
That's also
for the last 6 on the road.
Correct.
But one's in Tampa. Is that really on the road?
That's true.
Fair point.
That's not a
They only leave the state 3 times all year.
Right. I think UCF could win the league. I don't think it's I think it's close. I don't like this idea that somehow there's a distance between UCF and Cincinnati. When UCF has.
I think it's gonna be very close. This schedule is by far the most favorable schedule out of any team in the conference.
Even over SMU.
Yes. The fact that you don't have to leave your home state for most of the year, and that's crazy.
Even more than Houston.
It's crazy.
Or excuse me, I meant Houston. I said SMU. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, yeah.
And let me get up front on all our behalves. I don't think any of us are saying that the top 3 or 4 aren't conference championship appearance competitive. Any of those top 4 teams that we're talking about are definitely.
I think there's 5 teams that could legitimately make the conference championship game, which is Houston, Cincinnati, UCF, SMU, Memphis. I think those are your 5. Everybody else doesn't even belong.
So Eric, so you're saying Memphis could break into that top 4?
I do.
Kyle, is that your team that you think could break into the top 4?
I mean, if I'm going to pick a dark horse, it would be Memphis, but I don't know that they have enough balance overall for that.
Okay.
All right. So one of the things that Jeff was absolutely dead set on was make Navy better than they really are, and we had to argue this. We argued this.
I don't know, man. Maybe I just had PTSD from Navy games, but
I don't know. But you had him 9th originally, and then you wanted him higher. And but this is something I actually want to bring up because I think this is going to play a very important role in the season when we talk about offensive lines and what they can do. There's new rules in place. The cut blocking scheme that Navy and the triple options do is illegal now. They've changed the rules. It's one reason why I finally convinced Jeff, hey, bring them back. The only reason why they're not lower than Temple is because Temple's that bad. But I mean, I would have put them at the bottom if Temple wasn't there. This could play a role in other offensive lines. It's where the Cincinnati offensive line actually has an advantage because they're going to use flat out power as opposed to cut blocking, which is kind of a cheap way of getting around. So when you talk about offensive line, yeah, it's very important, but there's so much of a degree of unknown in how these rules are going to be, one, enforced, and two, how they can adapt, because even big offensive lines like a Cincinnati or UCF, they still have cut blocking in there, and now they have to take it out. So there's going to be a curve of adjustment. The question is, how bad is your team going to be affected by it?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a difference between like teams who use cut blocking as, you know, an occasional thing in a certain race, and then a team like Navy running the triple-O that
is nothing but
that is bread and butter.
That they base their entire offensive scheme on blocking below the waist.
Yeah, and I wanted to point that out, not just to mess with Navy, but to show that, just to talk about how we've got a fundamental blocking change that's going to impact this year. So that it just kind of muddies the water a little bit.
No, true, and that's a great point, but I'm not prepared to hang my hat on that until we get a couple games in and see how they call it.
Right, because we don't know if the refs will actually stick
it. And that's why preseason polls aren't worth the paper they're written on.
Let me stick to an NFL example that you rarely see called. Allegedly, it's illegal for a running back to lean forward and use his helmet.
Correct.
Calls that ish. So I'm wondering if that's going to be a similar thing. But if I see more than, let's say, 3 flags in week 1 for it, I'll buy what you're selling.
I think that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
By the way, that also assumes that Ken Niumatalolo is not going to coach that out.
That's
I mean, a good coach is going to be working on getting rid of that.
Well, I think he's on a hot seat there. I mean,
well, the style of offense is on the hot seat because that's, as you said, that's that's bread and butter.
Yeah. So last bit that I want to get to on this, the conference has UCF in 3rd. We picked them in 2nd. Kyle, you're on the record saying you are selling UCF at 3rd place because you think they'll finish in 4th. Eric, where are you buying, selling, or holding UCF at 3rd place as the final 8?
Yeah, hold. I think that's fair because they could win the league. They could finish 2nd. 3rd, I think that's fair. I think until we know what UCF's getting out of the quarterback position. Like, I love how we're scrutinizing what we don't know what Cincinnati's going to get the quarterback, but somehow we think we know what UCF's going to get out of the quarterback position.
I have them at 4th. Don't give me that.
No, not you. Plus, there's questions about.
I'm just saying. Listen. I might catch some flack for this from some people on Twitter, but like, I'm just saying, Ole Miss is greater than Eastern Michigan. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and so is Auburn, and you saw Joey Gatewood.
But remember, this Ole Miss guy was moved to wide receiver.
Well, who knows? We don't even know that. Yeah, we don't even know.
We've been over that. We've been over that anyway.
Now, Drew makes a good point. I do think I would actually, if you force me to not go middle, if you told me I have to go pick one or the other, I actually would buy UCF better than 3rd because of Drew's point about the schedule. You don't leave the state until Florida. You do get Cincinnati at home. That helps. And USF is like a bye week. So, I do think, now that I think about it, Drew, you did talk me in. I do think UCF should be picked 2nd. I wouldn't have an issue with that. I don't like the dismissive that people are all of a sudden being dismissive of Cincinnati. Like Luke Fickell hasn't gotten players, but I think UCF can finish in the top 3. I think anything worse than that would be a massive disappointment.
Well, yeah,
I'm not dismissing Cincinnati. I just think they've lost too much.
Well, here's the other
thing.
So
did UCF in 2019, and they still finished in the top 3.
Here's the other thing about the American. Last year, it was Cincinnati, very top heavy, and then it was, then everything fell down big time after that. This is a much more balanced league, top half. You even talk about 5 teams with a legit shot.
I mean, I think Houston is the one team that has the ability to go undefeated.
Houston. There's a reason why Houston was ranked 1st. They have a good path to the title game.
Yes,
and they're very talented, and they finished 11-2 last year. They had a good bowl win, and they're riding a major wave.
Yeah,
there's no reason to think that they can't do.
Well, I think this is no coach is under more pressure than Dana Holgerson. He's got a big salary in Houston. What has he done in his career? Like Gus is proven, Luke's proven. Dana Holgorsen ain't proven. He hasn't won squat in his career. He's been an average coach. This is his year. Can he take advantage of that? We don't know. Well, but I do think they're the team.
Houston was the second best team in the conference last year.
Absolutely.
I mean, you're not going to beat Cincinnati at that time. And that team was just...
And they played them well. They played them well in the title game.
Yeah, that team was just another level. There's just nothing they could have done about it.
However, by the way, Dana Holgorsen won a Big East championship and an Orange Bowl. So let's pump.
Yeah, that's a bad Big East against the bad Clemson team. That doesn't matter. Come on.
I think West Virginia just scored another touchdown.
All of a sudden,
yeah, exactly.
No, I think it was like 70-14 in that bowl game.
This is why, Kyle. This is why arguing with
how
Eric
many wins did West Virginia have that year?
While
he took over for Bill Stewart. Like,
hey, listen, you were there for me arguing with him about, women's basketball in Connecticut and all that when he was whack-a-mole in that too. I had to beat him in the face with numbers.
Whack-a-mole. What a word.
I got him to relent a little bit on some of the stuff. You just have to bludgeon him with so much fact that he can't breathe.
Lest we forget also Houston lost to Cincinnati in the conference championship game.
Played them well. That was a good game. The big wild card in all this, whether it be Cincinnati, UCF. Remember, UCF in 2017 was an afterthought. They were, I think, picked third in the division or second behind USF. Remember, USF was the flavor, the unanimous pick. And then what happened? Mackenzie Milton took the next step, and that's the wild card in all this. We don't know what Cincinnati or UCF is getting at the quarterback position, and we may not know for a couple weeks into the season. I think
Eric,
Cincinnati will find out.
There's a preseason polls. That's always the problem.
But you guys had a vote on it.
Well, we're asked to vote. We're going to vote.
Why wasn't Kyle and I brought in on this?
Especially because I didn't want to argue with you like we always freaking do.
What about Kyle? What's the excuse for Kyle? Poor little Kyle.
I thought you enjoyed me and Drew arguing.
Jeez. I gotta pick my poison one way or the other here. I'm not gonna double it up. All I gotta
say is how my
it's like asking me to take hemlock and cyanide. Okay, one of them's enough.
Don't worry, Kyle. We'll get the basketball.
Maybe they'll cancel each other out, but the truth is, look at my rankings compared to what actually happened. I think I was on to something.
Wow! Look at Drew with a sneak in there.
Okay, great. And if you want the insignificant teams, that's adorable, buddy. But listen.
God.
No, joking aside, no, I definitely am on task with you on the bottom. What is that?
7.
I agree
bottom
with you on the bottom 7. I don't even like necessarily that the final poll has, what's his words? Like you're different with, let me look at it. You're different. Actually, no. Yeah, the bottom 7 I'm good with. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. It's really the top 4. And again, like we said, we're splitting hairs. I really think Cincinnati's air quotes fall. I'm going to make the prediction now that the losses in the significant games that quote unquote keep them out of conference championship competition, if that in fact occurs, will total less than 20 points. That's how close this conference is this year.
Well, and that's okay.
Oh yeah. Well, they were playing. Listen, ECU I think was 10 points away from being 10-2 last year.
Correct.
Look at Memphis. 4 out of each of their 6 wins and losses were all within one score. I mean, a lot of 50-50 stuff.
UCF was 2 plays from attendance.
No, I don't like that argument. I mean, because they're 2 plays from losing 2 games too. I mean, that's football
listen,
in a nutshell.
Right, but that's what we're talking about is how many angels can you balance on the
head
of the pin, right?
I mean, health.
That's what we mean by closeness there.
Coins, it's a lot of these games are going to be coin flip games.
And we don't know. UCF's offensive line is depth is a question mark going in.
You can actually question a lot of depth in a lot of different areas for a lot of teams.
Well, and that's the uniqueness of this
Cincinnati's defense.
Like Cincinnati's defense, because I mean, and it's no fault of their own. The fact that they were that good, they got gutted by the NFL.
Yeah. Well, it's going to come down to at least what we're thinking right now. 4 games right now. The 4 kind of games that I think, if you're looking at the American right now in the national landscape, you got these 4 dates circled. October 1st, SMU at UCF.
Yes.
October 22nd, Cincinnati at SMU.
Yes.
October 29th, Cincinnati at UCF. Boy, that's a gauntlet for Cincinnati, man. And then November the 5th, Houston at SMU. So
again,
those
finding the world that you mentioned Houston once in those big games.
Yeah, and that's actually
I agree. Houston's a favorite.
That's one reason why we pushed them up towards number one is they have the, while UCF has the favorable location-wise, Houston is favorable opponent-wise.
Well, and avoiding a bad loss. Like UCF.
By the way, so does SMU because 2 of those games are at home.
Right.
They still have to.
But they still have the third one.
Yeah.
On the road.
Correct. Right.
All right. We're going to take a break. When we get back, going to do a little grab bag. Eric, we got some more softball news?
You're darn right. We got 2 national champions added to their coaching staff. We got basketball scheduling news and the biggest recruit in football history. Boom.
Maybe,
boom.
He signs on the dotted line. All right, we'll be right back. This is the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Kyle Nash, Andrew Glukov. We got a full house, and we better make some room for Bryson Turner because he's coming in here in this.
Let me just squeeze
third
right
and final
in
segment.
Yeah, full house.
What's that smell?
Did I miss anything?
No, nothing at all.
We got a little grab bag here for the end, but the first thing we got to talk about is listen, you guys know how I feel about recruiting news, but even I have to admit this is kind of a big deal. UCF got the high. Is this true, Eric? The highest rated recruit in history. Commit class of 2023. We talked about it at the top of the show. John Walker, defensive tackle. Kid's 300 pounds. He's from Osceola High School. And he has committed to stay home and come to play at UCF, Eric, starting in 2023.
Significant. Highest recruit. I mean, it's a big deal. Like, I'm talking to our boy, Brandon Helwig. He drove to this. He doesn't just drive to get a kid's commitment. That's how big of a deal that Brandon drove to it for coverage. So that's a pretty, whoa, that's kind of important. Number 2, not only a highly touted recruit, but a highly touted recruit in the trenches, boys. How big, Kyle and Drew, we have talked about this. You're going into the Big 12. What are you going to need? You're going to need some big boys up the trenches. And they just got this with this kid. And Gus Malzahn is sending a message. I can get my kids in the backyard, the very best, and beat out schools like Ohio State. Joke all you want. Other than there's been 2 schools in the last decade that have been the best in college football in grabbing talent, which is Alabama and Ohio State. It's not even a debate. Look at the success rate they've had in grabbing players and then developing them to the next level. And UCF just beat Ohio State for one of these kids. I never thought I would live to see that. This is significant. It's basically a message. UCF has arrived as a major player on the national landscape in college football. I think that's how big this is.
Not only that, but this is Gus Malzahn building a fence around the Central Florida area. He flat out said he was going to recruit this area like his hair is on fire. Yes. And this is a byproduct of that. There's so much talent in the state of Florida that schools from all over the country come try to get. And, to be able to start holding on to the not just the 2 and 3 star leftovers, but the top end ones that the big boys want. That sends, I think, an even louder message. Beating Ohio State for a recruit is huge.
Not just Ohio State, Michigan, Florida, and Miami too, reportedly.
But and with Miami and Florida in the mix, the fact that this guy is in the Central Florida area, you could sell the idea of your family can come to every home game. You're playing against the top teams in the Big 12. You're going to get better out of conference teams. You have something to sell. And this is the class of 2023. This is a Big 12 class. This is no longer an American recruiting class. And you're starting to see the dividends of that affiliation, along with the desire of locking down the area. UCF's Orlando's hometown team. Well, guess what? Stay home, play for the hometown team. I always tell people the idea of comparing to Ohio State to a UCF. Go to Ohio State. You want to be part of history? Go to UCF. You want to write the history.
The future of college football.
And I'll say all the stuff you said there, Drew, is stuff that other coaches could have boasted going back to Frost and Heupel. But I think what's different is the points you make aren't the cake, they're the damn frosting. And that is what makes this huge. Gus Malzahn has made this program credible in a way that those, hey, stay at home, be more comfortable concepts aren't the entire selling point. They're the frosting, not the cake. And the cake is, hey, look, you can talk about the Gasparilla Bowl being a lesser bowl, but we sold that ish out. Everybody saw it. So it's a great scouting opportunity for you for the next level. And you took out the alleged top school in the football programs in the state, right? Now, granted, you and I, all of us here on this panel are good enough analysts to know that football wise, that may not have been the best representation of what teams are capable of what on the field, but it's something that still happened. And it's still something that's marketed as such.
Floating rights.
Not only that, I mean, Gus and Mario Cristobal, who's now at Miami, are the two best track record coaches when it comes to recruiting and what they've done what they've done. Like Mike Norvell and Billy Napier are unproven guys. Gus is proven. Gus has proven he's won. He's won big. Hell, the SEC media, they still talk about him. All right. Yeah. So, they're not talking about Mike. I don't think a Mike Norvell question came up today in the American. All right, in comparison.
Yeah, they talk more about.
What is it? Saban's not giving Billy Napier drops. I hear you.
They talk more about Gus Malzahn at the SEC media days than Brian Harsin.
Correct. But Gus has this way. I do think he's the best football coach recruiter we've ever had. George was not a good recruiter. He was more of a developer. I don't, people know this, like he whiffed on some guys, quite frankly, that he should have gotten. Scott Frost just wasn't here long enough. So we don't know if he would have been a great recruiter. He had great success briefly, but we don't know if that's because he was a great recruiter or because he was the anti-O'Leary. And then Josh Heupel, proven wise, was a terrible recruit. I think Gus is legit. I think Gus is legit, and he's the right guy at the right time because he's the right guy to lead to the Big 12, which also enhances this and gives you excitement that now you know you can compete with the big boys to get this talent. And now having a top 25 recruiting class is not a pipe dream here, and that is significant.
You know, Eric, you're talking about Gus's recruiting capabilities, and I think one thing that Gus has done that I think that maybe we saw a bit with Frost and Heupel, but I think Gus has really showed us is that his successes from the transfer portal, like Isaiah Bowser, have already seemed to have really shown dividends. But now that he's staying longer, which is something we didn't get with Frost and Heupel, he can now go take that to the freshman recruiting class and go that route as well. John Walker's kind of like the epitome of that. Plus, it just gets the Ohio State fans mad, which I'm seeing on a tweet here.
Which is great for recruiting.
But
here's the point.
Drew is conflicted about all this.
Don't worry about that. But here's Bryson, you make a good point because some people are saying, well, until he signs on a piece of paper. In today's recruiting, actually, more and more players are now committing earlier because they don't want to fall behind because they want to play on the field quicker and they want to be able to recruit other guys to join them in the recruiting class, just like they do in the transfer portal.
The collusion defense, great point, Elo.
There's been players been outspoken that we wish we would have committed earlier so we could have helped maybe get this person in. So I think that's what we're seeing here, and I think Gus's track record is a proven track record, and they know who he is. They do. I mean, that's a solid point.
I want to make a quick point about Gus's recruiting class for 2023 real quick. This is according to Rivals.com. UCF has 8 players with verbal commitments in the class of 2023. 6 of them are from the state of Florida. 5 of them are from the greater Orlando area. The only 2 that are not from the state of Florida are from Brunswick, Georgia, and Savannah, Georgia. Southern Georgia kids. So to me, that tells you, he is, like you were saying, he's solidifying that obviously the state of Florida, and points not far from there.
So he's talented and efficient, Jeff, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into recruit, and this is one of those things that I think a lot of, is kind of underrated also, that I've heard from coaches on other sports too, and I think this applies to football as well. When you're a Florida school and you can recruit kids in state, that actually also helps out on your scholarship budget, because guess what? Y'all got bright futures. So if these kids are good students, guess what? that helps.
Also,
that's a big help.
I said
Yeah.
efficient.
When-
And oh, by the
when you're
way, boss.
in-state.
By the way, boss, with the NIL, you could also boast no state tax.
Yeah.
Also true. Also true. So that's a big win. Now here's a couple other big wins bringing people in. How about a double boom from UCF Softball, Eric Lopez, namely on the coaching staff? Two familiar names in the world of softball coming to UCF. New assistant coach Jen Salling, Olympic medalist, member of Team Canada. How about the Canada Pipeline, Eric Lopez? Joins UCF as an assistant coach to Cindy Ball Malone. She was also UCF's first volunteer coach. And then also coming on board, if you followed Oklahoma, this name should sound familiar, Shannon Sale comes in as a graduate assistant. She was a grad assistant for the Sooners last year. So tell me about this experience, Eric Lopez.
Well, I'm just happy now because Bryson can stop asking me every day, like, what have I heard about the assistant opening? It's done. It's done. So Jen Salling was a volunteer here in 19, played in Washington, won the national title in 2009, played there through 2012. Bryson, I believe, is correct. Is that correct? 09 to 2012, with Cindy Ball Malone being the assistant at Washington. So they go that back. Jen just coming off being an Olympian, winning Canada's first medal in softball this last year in Tokyo. She takes over for Whitney Jones, who moved on to Ohio State because Drew obviously took her away from us. So I blame Drew, but that's okay. But it fits very well because as me and Bryson talked about this, I think it was a couple weeks ago on the pod. This is Cindy Ball Malone's system when it comes to the offense. She doesn't run it anymore. She's running the pitching. But it's kind of the comparison I've made is to Bill Belichick. Assistants come and go, but the system stays the same. You bring in somebody that can run that system, and Jen knows that system inside out. And she's been spending a lot of time here anyway, so I think it's a great fit. So I think it's a good move there to get Sally there for coach. And then Shannon Sales, a Florida kid who played at FIU. You know who her pitching coach Jeff was at FIU?
Wait a minute. It wasn't.
It's somebody you know. That's why I'm asking.
Was it Hillary Barrow?
That is correct. See,
wow.
Hillary Barrow is the assistant to Shannon Sale, and really got her on the map at that time. So you got a little UCF connection there with Hillary, who was a former assistant and player at UCF. You mentioned she transferred from FIU to Oklahoma, won a national title, spent the last year as a grad coach under Patty Gasso at Oklahoma. Ironically, UCF played him in the Supers. And now she's coming back home to the state of Florida to take over in that grad coach position to give Sydney some extra eyes to run the pitching staff, kind of what Aaliyah White did. Aaliyah now is the pitching coach, the assistant at North Georgia. So that's pretty good. 2 national champions, another Olympian. I think it keeps that nucleus and the philosophy on that staff together. Bryson, you saw it up close covering the team, how tight that staff was and how the players kind of fed off of that.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you hit it on the head earlier where you're talking about this is Cindy's system. And the fact that Ball Malone and Sailing really only worked together previously with that one season with Washington, I think really shows how much of an impact Ball Malone can leave on a person. And I imagine they stayed in contact and they probably could.
Yeah, she was the volunteer in 19, came back to be a volunteer. Yeah.
Right. So I think that this is definitely a really good spot. I mean, Whitney Jones was almost won a Banny for a reason. That hitting was a huge part of why softball is where it is. And I think that Salling should be able to maintain that production going forward. And then, of course, Shannon Salling. I mean, like, I'm just very interested that somebody from Oklahoma ended up coming over here. And now I'm just intrigued by the fact, like, obviously, she's from Florida, and that's probably an enticement to come over here because she'll be closer to home this way. But I'm also interested to hear what she thought about seeing UCF from that other dugout, because they were one of the programs that put up a fight against the machine that is the Oklahoma softball team.
It's very fair. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a great move, and I think it keeps everything in nucleus, and that momentum moving forward.
Reloading, Eric Lopez.
Boom! On fire. I mean, they really are. I mean, to me, Sydney and Gus, and they talk. I know for a fact those two talk, and I think they're very similar in their philosophies when it comes to the transfer portal, when it comes to the coaching staffs. I think that's a factor. I mean, didn't Gus just lose one of his offensive play callers, technically, or not a play caller, Gus called the plays, but his offensive coordinator, he just plugged in somebody else because it's Gus's offense at the end of the day. And I think it's the same applies here. Don't you love those softball, football references, Kyle? Come on, I'm helping you out.
Oh, they're great. I don't know the last softball coach at UCF that wrote a book on offense, but your point is still made very
Give her time. Give her time.
Yeah. That's fair.
We got some men's basketball news we didn't get to before.
Big.
We got another recruit coming in with some experience, CJ Kelly. He's a 6'5" guard. He's from Long Island. Comes over from UMass. This guy's got some experience. Last year, averaged 10.1 points, 4.1 rebounds. This is actually his third school. He's been with UMass from before, but this guy's played 4 seasons. And Bryson is when we saw CJ Kelly, I mean, this does kind of initially. I think of the initial reaction was this guy's just kind of like a spot filler, but actually this dude's contributed. He's going to be legit. I think coming into this year. I don't know if he's going to quite replace Darren Green Jr. in terms of the 3-point shooting, but this guy's got a few pelts on his horse.
Oh yeah, I think the big, because I mentioned this before, is that Coach Dawkins has a good core to build around with the returners that he has, like Ty Freeman, Darius Johnson, at least in the guard spots. Then you have Suggs. I think they have a solid core. The big thing though now is you need to be able to have people to build around that can be able to come in when you need them to. And CJ Kelly, I mean, he does have experience starting. He started 14 games last year. So I think that he's a very adequate depth piece to have. He's a very dependable, and I think that's what this men's basketball team is. You need somebody that can be dependable, and I think that's the name of the game. Darius Johnson is dependable. CJ Walker is dependable. A lot of the people that they brought in look very dependable. So I'm excited to see what CJ Kelly's going to do as well. They also brought in another recruit as well, a freshman, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. So I believe that that the men's basketball program, Theano Sia, that's what his name is, a foreign prospect, I think that they now completed the roster, and at least from the scholarship position standpoint, and when I look at it, I'm interested to see what this unit's going to do. I think with Darius Johnson there, I think it's going to gel a lot better. And yeah, I'm excited to see when they take the court for the first time.
We're going to have a team that has, if I'm looking at this correctly, 6 players who are listed as senior eligible or older. Brandon Suggs, CJ Walker, Lahat Tioun, Ethiel Horton, and Michael Durr. And by senior, they're listed as seniors, redshirt seniors, or fifth-year players, in addition to CJ Kelly, too. So there's some grown men on this roster here. Well, so it's a question of, well, Eric, you're shaking your head here.
We'll see what happens when they get on the court, if they could fit in. But this is college basketball basically what it is now. You're going to have new faces every year. To me, the bigger news, the scheduling reports that came out this week. Okay. It's official. Missouri will play UCF at the Orange Bowl Classic down in Sunrise in December. We may have to make a road trip for that, Kyle. I mean, a little UCF Missouri hoops there. A little hoops, December 17th.
Listen, it's all about how the schedule falls out. But, to act like I'm ruling it out, don't put me there yet. This isn't the whole I'm interested.
And then John Rothstein reporting that UCF will host Stetson in men's hoops.
We're running it back. Get the yellow T-shirts out, guys.
See, clearly they read Jeff's article about saving the rivalry, and they've decided to bring back UCF Stetson basketball rivalry.
Where's Biggie? We got to get Biggie up in here.
So obviously,
he was Kirk's Jerks. You need the Rowdy Knights on that one.
I know. Well, Kirk Sparrow retired. This might be a good opportunity for us to bring Kirk back down.
Oh, dude! Wow. Wouldn't that be something? Oh, seriously, if you could pull that off, you would have the last 3 UCF head coaches in the building.
That's right.
Dude, Jeff, we got to get on that. Get on that. Get on
Jones,
that. Jeff, get on that. Yeah. Donnie, Dawkins, Kirk. Make it happen. Call your Jeff. You got to hire pull on this one.
We got to talk to MOD and TY on this one.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, you're the PA guy. You make it happen.
You're literally on the court. You can make it happen. I really think that'd be pretty cool.
They hear every word you say.
Literally.
Heck, we already got a UCF football no way home with KZ, Bortles, and Culpepper. Let's do it in UCF basketball too.
That would be wild, actually, if we could pull that off. But that's going to be interesting. Cool. Real quick, do you think Donnie gets booed? Who wants to take that? Drew? Kyle?
I don't think so. I don't think he's going to get booed.
I hope not.
I mean, he really didn't do anything wrong. He just, he did okay in Conference USA, and just he couldn't bring it up when they move to American. It was no different than Kirk. Kirk struggled in Conference USA.
Here's what happened with Donnie from my perspective. All right, when he came in, Donnie's MO was actually not too dissimilar from Gus, right, Eric? He was a recruiter.
Yep.
Big time recruiter. He was Billy Donovan's right-hand man at Florida before he went to Marshall for that 1 year, and then he came to UCF. Then what happened? A year or two after that, the recruiting scandal hit.
Ken Caldwell.
And Donnie kind of got railroaded by the fact that he couldn't recruit. Because UCF's basketball program was under probation for a period of time. So it handcuffed his best tool, and it didn't work out. The guys Donnie recruited some dudes, but let's not forget, he's the one who brought in BJ Taylor. He's the one who brought in Taco Fall.
Well, that'll be interesting to see their reaction in that building too, boy. Here's the storylines, boy. There's storyline. Kyle, you and I we're going to that game. I don't know when it is. We don't know, but we're going. And that's going to be fascinating to see how that all plays out with all the parties. And I'm going to give Coach Dawkins credit. They're going to host FSU. There's reports that they're going to host Miami in a home and home. We don't know that if that's factual yet, but it has been reported by college basketball people. Now potentially hosting Stetson, along with playing Missouri, as I mentioned, the Orange Bowl Classic. They're going to play a home and home with Ole Miss, going on the road to Ole Miss. They're playing Oklahoma State in the Bahamas. I'm shocked that Kyle hasn't booked his flight yet for that.
I'm working on my passport.
Fair. Johnny's a creative scheduler, man. Really good scheduler that I don't think he gets enough credit for, because I don't think he can pull off some of these games that I don't think other UCF coaches could have pulled this off, especially getting games like Oak State, getting Florida State to come here, stuff like that. But yeah, the Stetson thing will be amusing with the former players. And I love your idea, Jeff. We need a campaign. Because Kirk's retired now. For those that don't know, he's retired from Iowa.
He retired from Iowa after this past season.
And I could be wrong, but he has not been back to UCF on an official on camp. Like, he might have been back in an alumni thing or whatever. Off, you know what I mean? Like, I know the basketball.
I haven't seen any. He wasn't back at the alumni thing last year. Of course, he was working. So, yeah, I don't know.
I don't think he's been back.
We got to get on this.
Yes,
we got to get on this.
Drew, you got a lot of power. You and Gus Malzahn are BFFs. Make it happen.
Drew's an old school guy. I mean, were you a Rowdy Knight, Drew? No, you were in the band.
I was in the Jammin' Knights for a couple years. I actually never joined the Rowdy Knights. So you'd think I would have, but it just never happened. And then
you weren't a Kirk's jerk either, were you?
I wasn't a Kirk's jerk either.
No.
But I was.
Kyle, were you either?
I was close friends with a number of Rowdy Knights.
I'm about to say, Drew's tied to the Rowdy Knight Network. Don't let him.
There's that famous photo that you've shared, many a time with Lee Corso, right?
No, that's Matt Brodsky.
That's Brodsky.
Brodsky shares that, right? And Jimmy Skiles is in that photo.
Oh, man, Jimmy!
I got.
How do we forget Jimmy?
Terrible off-color joke that pops in my head, But thanks.
No,
thanks,
don't.
Jeff.
This is a family show. Thank you.
Jeff, did Taylor Young play for Donnie? I know he played for Kirk. I'm trying to remember.
He did.
Oh man, this just gets better.
I think his last half, the last half of the season,
pretty good.
Or last bit of his career, he was there.
I mean, MOD was with him.
But MOD, yeah.
Look,
Jermaine.
Well, wait a minute. No, MOD did not play for Donnie.
Sure about that?
Yes.
No, MOD. You're right. He did not. But
neither did
Jermaine last year.
Neither did Jermaine Taylor. Jermaine Taylor did not play for Donnie Jones.
I thought he played one.
Played for Kirk. No. AJ Ramsa crossed over. I know that for a fact. So, all right. So that'll go ahead, Bryson. You have one more.
Like, I just want to say, like, look, gentlemen, if this show has taught us anything at all, is that football and men's basketball, while they may have had their struggles last season, I think that there is a very much an interest to see what sort of new wrinkles are going to enter the playing field into both of their next seasons. And then, of course, softball is reloading for another run once we get to 2023.
I just want Jeff's idea to get out there. I just want Jeff's idea. That might be one of the greatest ideas in the history of this show, 7 years, right there.
I learned a very, very different lesson. Nothing is safe anymore. Nothing is sacred here.
And I can confirm that Kirk Spiraw's Jermaine Taylor's last season was Kirk Spiraw's second to last.
If anybody important, if you're important and involved in decision making, and you're listening to this, just get Jeff's idea, steal it. He doesn't mind. He'll be glad to take it. To take the idea.
Funny how he just said
steal his stuff, please.
Yeah. I really love that. I really love that. Like, I would mark out for that.
Commit acts of theft against Jeff.
Yeah.
Would anybody start the good coach, bad coach chants? If those, I mean, how would that?
Oh boy.
Here we go.
I want Tom Harrion to show back up and have a pretend heart attack again.
Oh
my God.
That would always cement the Donnie Jones reunion even better.
Oh my gosh. All right.
Save that for when that week.
Please, I want to end the show now before we get into any more trouble than we already are. If you haven't subscribed to our podcast, Lord knows why would you now? No, I'm just kidding. Make sure you subscribe on Apple and Android devices. You can also follow us on YouTube. Just search for Black and Gold Banneret. Follow us on Twitter at UCF Banneret_SBN. You can follow us each individually. I am at Jeff_Sharon. Kyle is at the SOTG for the student of the game. Eric Lopez is at Eric Lopez Elo. Andrew Glukov is at Statboy Drew, and of course Bryson is at It's Bryson Turner. You can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. Thanks again to everyone who helped us out. Thanks to Chuck Sullivan over at The American for his help with Media Day and also with the poll. And also thanks to John Heisler and the entire communications staff at UCF for their help as well. So that'll do it for us for this week. Make sure you stick around on the site. Also this week, we're going to do some more preview stuff. We are going to look at the remainder of the schedule. Know Thy Foes coming up.
Practices start next week. We're
Practice
ready.
starts next week. We're going to have UCF Media Day coming up real quick.
Kyle, so camp out for the first practice. Camp out.
You and Trace can hang out.
Yeah, I was going to say Trace is probably already there. He's,
Hey, listen.
If Trace shows up with a beard, we're going to know.
He signed squatter rights.
Yeah.
Well, he's got to get there early to do the walk and talk.
This is true. And ask the first question.
Through the sprinklers, right?
Yes.
All right. Trace, we love you, bud. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. For Bryson, Eric, Andrew, and Kyle, I'm Jeff. Enjoy the week. We'll see you next week.